Alright, welcome back. So the last time we went is we were talking about how to just put your basic textures into a material, thus creating a nice little material which has your color, your roughness or shading, your normals, and your displacement, thus giving you that illusion that things are definitely displaced and not just flattened. Now we also added two sides, so if you just remove the two-sided, you won't see the insides, but you can see the outsides. So with that ahead, let's actually jump into graph editing and make it the same way, but with more with more settings than what we currently have, and some displacements and all that. A little bit more, you could say, coding based or node based workflow. And what we do is we just right click, create a material. So just right click in your asset browser, create a material, and just click on a material graph. And I'm just going to call it PBR. So that's our basic PBR. So when you double click on it, you can go inside here and we have our graph. So to right click, you add something new, left click and holding around would select stuff, and the middle mouse button is the main thing. So scrolling just zooms in and out. My scrolling wheel is a little broken, but clicking on the scrolling wheel and moving it will move the base. Alright, so the first thing we're going to actually do is understand how everything works. So we got our texture 2D and our albedo normal, albedo color, metalness, and roughness, and you can see those are the same parameters over here. So the reason why we can't touch or use anything is this is the base graph. So if you want to edit it, you got to do the child, and then the child shall edit everything. But once you change anything on the base, it will affect the child. So we're just going to go back, double click on the base, and then we are going to do some changes. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold all these, move it around away just to have space. I'm going to click on the line and delete it because I don't like the way it looks. And then I'm going to add something called a portal in. Now, just by the name, you could tell it's a portal. So I'm just going to call it albedo, and then you can change the color. I'm a little picky, so I'm just going to choose the same color as that, so it looks about the same. So I'm just going to keep it like this, and then for this, I'm just going to press this little triangle button, which mutes it over here, just to make it look cooler. Alright, and then I'm going to choose a portal out, and once I do that, it looks a little bit cleaner in my opinion, and now it's connected like this. So you can technically have your workflow sectioned out in areas and everything connected by little portals, making them look a little clean. Now this is just my opinion, you don't really have to, but I like it that way. Alright, so I'm going to add one for this, and I'm going to add one for the roughness and for the displacement. Now, how do we make a displacement and roughness? So first things first, we're going to delete the roughness. I'm going to create a new roughness. So over here, I'm going to just click on it, and I'm going to change it to texture 2D. This way it's a little bit easier. So we're going to keep everything else, but we're going to change roughness to texture 2D, and then we have the ability to add a new parameter or copy it. I'm going to copy it twice because not only do we need texture, we need roughness, we need normals. Actually, just once would have been nice. And then we need displacement. And for this, we're just going to keep it like that, and I think I'll just delete this instead. Alright, so now that we do it, how do we actually use it? So like over here we have the roughness and displacement. How do we put it? Just click and drag it inside, and we have our roughness just like that, now connected. Now the thing is, we need a sample texture. So we're going to have to write sample texture, and we get this. And now we have this, and we could just connect it to the roughness. I'll do that later. So these three are pretty much easy to understand. We don't need any basic parameters. We already have it. This one had a basic parameter, and this one is a basic parameter of texture 2D, and then this one's a basic of normal. Now the last thing we have left is actually the displacement. So displacement actually is just tessellation, and we're just going to add it into tessellation, or we're going to add a tessellation version of displacement. Now if you don't understand why, let's just go back into the original materials, and then when we go into our displacement, we have parallax occlusion, tessellated displacement, and vector displacement. So we're just going to use this method of displacement the way we used it here, and we are going to modify that. So let's just click and drag it right here. Perfection. Now the next thing we're going to do is just, as usual, sample texture. Alright, and we're not really done. Now if we just connect this one, we won't really have anything new that we created. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create something new, a slider. It's okay, sliders are good. And I'm going to have like a few of 3 settings. So offset, alright. Guess it doesn't work right now. My computer is a little bit slow. So I'm just going to copy paste it, call it offset, change it to a slider. And then for the values, I'm going to make the offset anywhere from 0 to, let's say, 5 meters ahead, and the default value to be 0. So now we're just going to take it, click it over here. So that's our offset. Now let's add 2 more. We're going to add the displacement and the bump, or the vertex effect and the bump. So the factor of how much it should displace and the bump. So I'm just going to press plus here, or copy and paste this. Alright, after adding these, let's actually connect these. Okay, so now that we have an offset, offset always has one value. It's just a float value. So we're just going to do an addition. And we're going to make it as a B or an A. It doesn't really matter. Just to make it a little bit cleaner, I'm just going to put it, since it's under, it's under. Now, for a sample texture is a color, and a color is a float 4. If you don't know what a float 4 or float 2, 3, or 4 are, they're basically vectors. So X, Y, Z, and W, or RGBA, wherever you're from. So color is RGBA or XYZW. So we're going to just use one of them. So we're going to use the X. The W means it's a combination of all of it, which we don't need. We just need one value, which is going to be X. And we're going to modify that X with the offset. Alright, it's just going to choose one number, whatever that modification is. Then from that, we're going to do multiply. Alright, and we're going to take the height that we had, alright, the height number that we had, and we're going to multiply it by that number. Alright, so now this is done, but the problem is we don't want it moving or multiplying in all fields, because when we look at an object, or like, let's just click on this object for a moment. The X is the sideways, Y's are the ups and downs, and then the Z is the out, in, or forward, backwards. So in our case, for everything, our normals, or where it's supposed to be pulling out, is going to be on the Z. So all our modifications, so whatever our modification that we did, we're going to have to be doing that on the Z. So in this case, I'm definitely going to do a portal, and I'm going to attach it to this portal output, and I'm going to change it from that to displacement. Alright, so now there is a little bit of difference. So let's just delete this again, and let's just go back inside here and hover over it. Now you can see there is a little X here, but that's not what we want. So what we want is this. So when you hover over the vertex off tangent space, we can just hover over any one of these. So I'm just going to hover over x, comma x, comma x. Now this is actually just a transpose into a float 3, but I'm a little lazy. So we're going to double click in it. And as we said, we don't want any changes on the x, we don't want any changes on the y, but we want the change on the z. And we're just going to use the letter x that we have modified. Now if the letter over here was y or z or w, that letter should be the same. So then we connect that. Alright, and then after that, portal out the displacement. Alright, so with that we are all, I guess, done. Alright, and then let's portal out everything else. Now if we just forgot, the displacement factor needs to be connected to the tessellation factor, and then I just do that. And now let me just portal the rest of the stuff. So once we are done portaling everything and having everything connected, right here looks pretty clean in my eyes. I mean, like, then again, I'm a little whatever structured this is called, and I hate my scroll wheel. But once we're done, we press save. So once we're done, we press save. We close this. And now, as you can see, our PBR graph has all these differences. So let's just change this to have this current material, which has almost nothing at the moment. And we're going to change our settings. So first, we change this. Oops. The 6 would be a better one. Then we have the displacement. We put it on the displacement. You can see that it already had the displacement. The normals, switch it here, and then the roughness, switch it here. Alright, so now just with that change, we can already see that it's bumping up pretty nicely. Now here's the one thing, the displacement factor is a bit too strong, so we can actually change it or not. So now we have a complete proceduralization. So here, if I just change it, you could see that the difference between light and dark, or the push and the pull bump, is now pretty strong. Now the next thing we can also change is the height amount. How much is it supposed to pull and push, right? So we can just pull it real hard, or we could just pull it just a little bit, which is a lot more believable. Now the offset is how much further out is it going to be. And if I were to put it -1 and then we increase that, it's going to go in reverse because it's an addition. So we're going to keep the thing 0. We're going to put it at 0.3, and actually this is up to you, how much you want to pull or push. But we have a proceduralized or a PBR graph working perfectly fine. Now we can see also the difference when we literally just hover over it. You can see that there's a bit of realism in there, and the color is not too bright. So if I were to just do it, you can see that it does affect every object differently. And the reason why it's affecting this one differently is because my object's scale is messed up. Alright, so with that, we got our cuboid fixed. Anyways, so now with all that set up, we have everything well fixed, well amended, and well PBR'd. All right, so that's the beginning of material graph editing. All right, so with that, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about subgraphs and extra more detail, a little bit proceduralization, and probably even texture painting in the more completed sense. So until then, I will see you guys next time. All right.